Hello everybody, welcome to the MASH House. We are here with a lovely gentleman. Today I wanted to discuss something that is obviously on everybody's lips, and that is COVID-19. Now, COVID-19 obviously stands for Coronavirus Disease 2019. Fun fact, coronavirus is a phrase that is used to describe most respiratory illnesses. There are 7 known coronaviruses. But we're talking about COVID-19 because it creates very interesting situations and problems for us today. One of the biggest issues with COVID-19 is we still, to this day, have no known cure or treatment or vaccine. Now, that is both a good thing and a bad thing. The reason it's a good thing is because it therefore means that a human being is able of disposing the virus by themselves. All you need is a healthy immune system. All you need to do is make sure you are doing what you normally do. You're exercising, you have your vitamins, you have your vegetables, and if your immune system is strong, you are about to beat that virus. The bad news is for those people that do not have the luxury of a strong immune system, there is no intervention by medical science that can help you deal with this virus, and that's where our problem is. Because not everybody is a fully functioning, healthy adult. Hence our problem. All right, so getting back to our current situation today, Zambia today, as of recording this, just recorded 13 new cases of COVID-19, bringing our total to 137 cases. Now that's an alarming number. I remember when I was telling the guys about it here, my jaw dropped to the floor. I was saying, brace yourselves, winter is coming. 137 is a big number, but more than just panicking about who's got the virus, I think the most important thing to know is what that means for you and what that means for me. The first thing I want to start by saying is I think some of the fear, not all of it, but some of the fear on COVID-19 is extremely overrated, like seriously overrated. The virus is not as dangerous in its purest form as it's being made to seem. There are a lot more recoveries and a lot more cases where people have got it and have suffered mild shortness of breath and tightness in the chest, and 14 days later they've beat the virus. And this is not to take away from how deadly the virus clearly is. I mean, it has taken quite a few lives as we speak. The United States is the biggest testimony of that, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But in its purest form, in isolation, the virus can be beaten. And all it does is it replicates and replicates and replicates. So when you get the coronavirus, I'm sure by now you have read about it, but just for your sake, I'll go through it. When you get the coronavirus, it resonates in your nasal chamber. So there is a bone area just behind your nose that is cool. And scientists have detected from all the cases they've observed that it incubates itself there until it has replicated enough and is strong enough to try and face your immune system. Once it reaches its optimum viral load, it travels down your throat, hence the coughing. And if it progresses further than that, it then infects your chest cavity, which is now where your cases start getting a bit serious. The good news is 80% of people who get the coronavirus are able to beat it before it gets down to your chest area. So basically what it does is it goes into your cells, your respiratory cells, replicates itself, and then explodes the cell, spreading viruses to other cells. When the virus infects a new cell, it commands the cell to replicate and make so many and so many. The virus activity is very similar to HIV and AIDS, except HIV targets your immune system cells. Coronavirus just targets your respiratory cells, which is easier to deal with because then your immune system can play. Critical patients are patients who have then had the infection reach their chest and have had so many respiratory cells, basically the cells in your lungs, burst and exploded that 2 things happen. Number 1, it is difficult for you to get enough oxygen in, hence the shortness of breath. And number 2, the exploded cells all gather together and liquid forms in your chest, which is now the pneumonia combination that then makes it very difficult to survive. Even in extreme situations, you can still beat COVID-19, and that's the truth. That's why you're hearing a lot of talk about ventilators, because what the ventilators do is they bypass your lungs' natural ability to take in your oxygen and give your body a fighting chance. So you don't have to worry about breathing while it buys time for your immune system to track the disease down and basically eliminate it and destroy it. So that's a lot about how COVID works. And the reason that information is important is because it helps, or it should change, how you think about COVID-19. Ordinarily, people from the age, people as old as 55 should still stand a fair chance at beating this disease. Post 55, and the reason why a lot of old people are suffering is because, wear and tear. You've been living for such a long time. Your immune system is not what it used to be. And the truth is, as COVID aside, other diseases are a threat to people who have come down in age. That's why if you know any old people, they're complaining about so many things. Their bones, their teeth, a whole bunch of things. So at their age, they are most at risk of diseases because their immune system has worn out over time. So that's the reason why it seems so vicious against old people, but it's really not as vicious as it is being sold in the media. And that's an important thing to note. What we should be concerned about is the aftermath effect that this disease has. And now I want to talk about the case in the United States. The United States is a very interesting case study because when COVID was first announced in China, reports suggested to them that it is not a serious disease, just like I had previously mentioned. But the mistake they made is they didn't take it seriously, and I want to reiterate that. Just because it's not as deadly as other diseases does not mean it should not be taken seriously. We should take it seriously, and so that should lead to us paying attention, but without fear. Now, they didn't take it seriously, and they were casual in their response because they said the common flu kills more people in the United States than COVID has done, and they allowed the spread to go further and further and further. And this is where the problem is. COVID becomes dangerous when infections hit critical mass. And what I mean by critical mass is when the number of people infected begins to overwhelm our capacity to cope, to correctly categorize, and to correctly manage it. The reason this is key is we saw this in New York. The first thing that collapses is your health system. Now, if your health system collapses, that means your city has no way of fighting the disease. And if you have no way of fighting the disease, you can't prevent people who should have been prevented from getting this disease, from getting it. I was watching a documentary, and I'm going to share some of the statistics. I'm sure it will be put up on your screens. One of the things that defeated the Spanish flu was if you can develop enough people who have recovered and have developed some kind of immunity because they've got the antibodies from recovering from the virus, you can create sort of a wall that blocks people from getting reinfected. And this stops the virus and eventually causes it to die out. That's how most diseases are beaten. The problem happens when you allow the disease to infect absolutely everybody. That means you're stuck with the disease for over years and years and years, because if one person recovers today, he's at risk of getting reinfected by 5 to 10 million people that are surrounding him on a daily basis. That's a problem. Because if every day you're fighting a new infection of the virus, imagine it this way. The best way to paint this picture is this. A flu is not that dangerous. Not as dangerous as that is. But imagine you get a flu every single day for your whole life. Imagine Monday you get a flu, by Friday you've beat it, Saturday you've got the flu, by Tuesday you beat it, Wednesday you get the flu. Imagine what that would do to your system, to your health. You would deteriorate in natural terms, and eventually you would find yourself in a situation where you're no longer strong enough, you're no longer eating enough to fight consistently, and that's what we should prevent. Our biggest issue is not the virus itself per se. Our biggest issue is getting to a situation where so many people are infected you can't cope. New York alone lost 24,000 lives. As it stands today, America has by far the highest death rate, which is 64,000 plus or minus lives lost, not infected, lost. They have over 1.1 million people infected as we speak. The reason it's a crisis is because it's everywhere and you don't have a system that can cope. Bringing it back to Zambia, that's what we want to fight.